Thank you. We'll get started now. Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you very much. Thank you to Jesse and the Brattleboro Senior Center for hosting this program. We appreciate it. My name is Donna Dearborn, and I've written a book called Every Sunday, A Father and Daughter's Enduring Connection. And here we are. Let's see. I was the author of the book, but it was far from being a personal endeavor. We had an Every Sunday team. Kate Gleason, she lives in Keene. She was my editor, and she was invaluable in helping me take a 550-page manuscript and fine-tune it and hone it into a slightly under 300-page manuscript where it should have been. So she was a wizard to help me. Margaret O'Connell was wonderful to proofread. John Reinhardt was my book designer. He lives in Brookline, Vermont. I didn't know I needed a book designer, but when he offered to read the manuscript, he felt a deep connection with my story, and he guided me along the path of many steps to help get it from the manuscript to this book. And I had no idea, so it was a huge learning experience and a big adventure, so I thank John a lot. Then, Mom, we are blessed with the presence of Doris Dearborn here today. She was generous and supportive throughout this long journey. It was an 8-year process from when I first started writing the book till when it was an actual reality, and the book arrived on my mom's birthday too. A truckload of books, 1,000 books, arrived, and it was on her birthday, and I immediately drove to Brattleboro to deliver her the first copy. My husband Wally, he's been known at times as Wally Dearborn, but his name is Wally Kangas. My dad said a long time ago, he said he must have some Dearborn blood in him from a latent gene because he fit in so well with our family. And my dad loved Wally, and Wally loved my dad. He was great. Wally was very patient through this process, always believed in this story and in the book becoming a reality. So that's our Every Sunday team. Here's my dad, and I'm deeply honored to talk about my dad, Frank Holt Dearborn. And around Brattleboro, he was known as Frank Dearborn. You'll notice that he did have the license plate with Holt on it. And that was his middle name that he loved. All through growing up and through his high school years, he was known as Holt. So nobody in New Hampshire knows him as Frank Dearborn. They know him as Holt Dearborn. And the little Honda still has the Holt license plate to this day. My dad and me. I was blessed to have a wonderful father, and I am forever grateful for that. If I were to try to create the ideal father, it would be a carbon copy of Frank Dearborn, my dad. This is a quote at the beginning of the book, and it is so true. My father gave me the greatest gift anyone could give another person. He believed in me. And truly he did, in a deep way. And here my dad and I are at the top of Mount Mansfield, the highest mountain in Vermont. And it's 1973. I look a little kooky. I think back when I was a sophomore in college, we wore, you never knew what would be the attire. We were on a 3-day backpack trip from up and over Mount Mansfield all the way to Jonesville, the lowest point on the long trail. My dad not only believed in me, he infused me with his infectious positive attitude and optimism, and I learned early on that anything was possible. My dad was very instrumental in helping me gain confidence from an early age, and to help me believe to never stop pursuing my dreams. Here we are up in Bricker Pond, the 3 of us kids with Dad. He spent time with us, and really he gave us the gift of himself. He gave us his support, his attention, and his unconditional love. He was really there for us. He played with us with exuberance. He was athletic, competitive, and he was fun. He passed his competitive spirit on to me, Well, so here we are in Erie, Pennsylvania on a family vacation going across country, which we did just about every summer. He passed on his love of the outdoors. Here we are on the top of going up Mount Belknap. This is a very old photo from the late 50s, and I love our attire. The plaid shirts. We all seem to have a plaid shirt that's buttoned all the way to the very top, but that was the style back then. Dad also loved Sunday outings with the DDAC. That was the name of our little club. It's named after, it was called the Holt Dearborn Athletic Club. Mom was the one who would phone everybody up, the Crosbys and the Davises and the Maddens, say, okay, we're gathering at such and such a time. And it might be skiing, it might be hiking, it might be jeeping. My dad is in the back with the blue hat and the skis crossed. My mom's beside him and I'm in the gold hat on the far right. This one's in Reedsboro. We had adventures all through the woods of the surrounding towns, Guilford, Putney, and Brattleboro. This is my sister in the foreground, and it must be spring skiing we were doing there. Deb always loved to dress up in something different, something wild. So she had a vest from her Mexican vest, and shorts, and knee socks, and a hat that she had made herself. And here we are on Putney Mountain. Janet Crosby and Betty Crosby and Dick Crosby and Ellen Rounds. And I'm on the far right with very fashionable brown saddle shoes and a wide headband. Dad's in the back. Mom's taking the picture here. Here's Dad, 1979 vintage. He looked people straight in the eye. He believed that everyone mattered, that everyone deserved a hello and a smile. I'll read a short excerpt from the book. Here. Friendly Frank was gregarious and always ready for conversation. Beneath that friendly surface was much, much more, a deep reservoir of love, compassion, and kindness. Dad looked straight into someone's heart, beyond missing teeth, a limp, strange mannerisms, or odd behavior. He believed in the basic goodness of people and gave everyone a chance. He hired Herbie, Wes, Peter, and many more who were outcasts, rejects, or people ridiculed for the way they dressed, walked, or talked. They thrived from Dad's kindness and glowed from his attention, comforted they had a friend, one of the few they had, perhaps the only one. Here we are on one of our Sunday hikes at Little Rock Pond. This bridge is no longer there, so it's kind of a vintage picture from 1969. My dad was ever curious about what was around the next bend, and he was always ready for another adventure. He would be planning one. As we were finishing one adventure, he would be saying, where do we go next? Where should we be off to? So this is my sister and me and my dad. Dad loved traveling. We travel on a 2-week vacation every August, often across the country. Here we were on the way to Kansas, and on the left, this is our family, on the left is our Aunt Ella's Mom's aunt, was our great aunt. And I don't know how she put up with us, but every summer she went on our family vacation with us, and we fit 6 of us into a small compact car, 3 in the front and 3 in the back. And so on our way to Kansas, we wanted to reconnect with Mom's sisters. She had 2 sisters who ended up in Kansas. They married good Kansas men, and they had a lot of children, so we had many cousins that we loved to reconnect with over the years. And now we reconnect with them every 2 years in a Brown family reunion. My dad told us stories every night. He had a fascinating story for us, and I am still in awe at how he could come up with a different, unique, interesting story every night. He asked us what kind of story we wanted. Sometimes they were train stories, or they were adventure stories, or stories about horses or dogs. And often he told us stories about his times growing up in Franklin, New Hampshire. We learned a lot about his childhood during these stories, about the clubhouse that he and his brother had made in the barn in back of their house. And they put booby traps and gongs and all kinds of fancy contraptions that would scare their sisters. They had 3 sisters, and they didn't want their sisters in the clubhouse. It was boys only. And these contraptions would usually scare the sisters, and they would go running and screaming back to the house to their mother and father. And also we learned about the paper airplanes they made in Sunday school, and they would fly these airplanes that would go through the church during the church service, get their Sunday school teacher and also themselves into trouble. And here I love the curlers that we have in our hair. We have these little plastic pink curlers. My mother thought we should have curls in our bangs. I didn't necessarily like that, and when they would take it out, I would go to the sink and with my comb and some water and make my bangs straight again, now and then, if I could get away with it. So Dad's never seemed to run out of stories, and I'm really in awe of his creativity and his imagination. One of the ways my dad really stood out was the way he listened, and I'll read a very short piece about how he listened, and my glasses would help. He listened and nodded. Instantly I felt better, enveloped in love. Was all he said for the first few minutes, listening intently to each word in his typical, calm, deliberate way. With puffed out cheeks, he ruminated, like a cow chewing its cud. He took his time, pondered, and asked questions. That was his way, never telling us what to do, rather guiding us through the process of arriving at the solution ourselves. Often a simple question from him solved our dilemma. No matter how busy he was, Dad always made time to listen. Embraced by his gentleness and kindness, cradled in a sphere of love and acceptance, no wonder we felt like the most important person in the world in his presence. Here we are, our family. Dad did not lecture us. We watched him and learned. He showed by his example more than telling us what to do. And by watching him, we learned to do what you love, to never give up, to be positive, to enjoy the outdoors. He was our mentor, and he was our hero for the 3 of us kids. He loved his grandchildren. On the left is Josh in the backpack, and on the right is Mecca. Now Josh on the left, you can see the passage of time. This is with Deb, and Josh is turning 39 this year. So we've been a few years since this photo. Mecca on the right is turning 15 shortly, next month. But he adored his grandchildren. These were his 2. He was a wonderful grandfather to his grandchildren. This photo was taken in 1957, the first year that Dad arrived in Brattleboro. So one of his first jobs was dedicating the pool at Living Memorial Park. And he was a few years out of college at this point. He had a special touch with people, a real open-hearted style that fostered cooperation and communication. This is another old one. Back in 1965, the Senior Center used to be in Sam's down on Main Street. Anybody remember that? Anybody go to the Senior Center? No takers? Okay. There's Mrs. B on the left. And she was one of Dad's significant mentors in recreation. And Carol you knew Mrs. B, all right? And Dad was passionate about working with people, so he did choose the perfect profession to work with a wide variety of people, from youngsters to senior citizens. Here's another senior citizen picture. Back then, originally when he came to Brattleboro, he started the Golden Age Club. That's what it was called, instead of the Senior Center. Here he is with Francis Morse and Mildred Space playing croquet. He loved to hang out with seniors. That was one of his favorite things to do. He had a special rapport with seniors. He did have endless patience also. He listened to them, he counseled them, he helped to work out riffs. There were many. And now I have the Frank Dearborn archives in my basement, and I have found these letters written to my dad long ago, in the 50s and the 60s from seniors, thanking him for being there for them, for helping him work out their troubles. And they're really wonderful letters. They adored him. He came here to lead sing-alongs too, so singing being one of his favorite things. Here's my dad in his office, and he loved working with kids. He was a father figure to teens frequenting the recreation center. He went into their world a lot to shoot hoops, to play ping pong, and he took them under his wing and listened. He offered a sympathetic ear, and he offered them common sense answers. Here's Dad with Mrs. B, the recreation legend, in 1977 receiving the Burngard Award. She was a pioneer in the recreation field, and this award is named after her. It's the State of Vermont Recreation Award, a very significant, prestigious award for the state award, and Carol has received that also. Carol Lolot, who is here. Thank you. Here he is with former Senator George Aiken, and this is a typical pose of my dad. Seeing him laughing, smiling, just having a good time. He loved to have fun. Dad was well respected beyond the local and the state level. He received the Professional Award for Meritorious Service. That's a national award. And his citation read, "Dearborn has richly earned the complete respect, admiration, and love of his entire community, young and old alike. He is a constant inspiration to his fellow professionals everywhere. Frank Dearborn truly personifies the best of America and the best of the recreation and parks profession." So that was an honor back in 1979 that he received. Here's friendly Frank again, gregarious and always ready for conversation. This is one of the first stories in the newspaper, just after Dad had received the Citizen of the Year Award in 1966. His work is other people's play, and it did not feel like work to him. He embraced his job, and it was wonderful to see someone who had just chosen the perfect profession, and it inspired me all throughout my years to find what I loved to do, to not be stuck in a job that you felt that you had to do. Here's a parade. Perhaps this is an alumni. We don't have so many parades anymore, but this was the recreation theme and motto back then in the 80s, life be in it. So it's really a very important one, relevant one to Dad. He said people have more leisure time today, and they're looking for more programs and facilities. And he felt that he and the recreation department, the community, has a responsibility to meet these needs and develop facilities and also develop more programs and to use them wisely. Leaving the recreation center, this is the way it looks today, pretty much, right? The refurbished one. On the day he retired, he said, something he said I really liked. He said, "My life is recreation. I do it, I live it, I love it, and I'll continue to do it." And that was Frank Dearborn, the recreation man. He really did live it. It was his job, but it was his whole life. When I went away to college, my dad said, "I'll write to you on Sunday. Will you do the same?" And I said, "Yes, Dad, I will." And we wrote to each other every Sunday, all through my college days, and then we kept writing. We never stopped. Sometimes he printed in capital letters, such as this letter. I have a lot of his letters. I probably have over 1,600 letters of his still. So that's a lot of letters. We wrote 32 years. We continued these letters. He didn't think his handwriting was readable, his cursive handwriting, but I really could read it. Sometimes he would write in cursive, but he thought his block printing, he loved typing his letters on a typewriter, on an old manual typewriter. He was a very good typer, and he felt that his thoughts could flow very quickly onto the page when he typed it. And in this letter, it's the theme, a very typical joyous way that he would write. "Have a good trip home. Our wishes and love are with you. It'll be a joyous reunion. We look forward to it. Can't wait. Much love and supportive thoughts. This was a letter Dad wrote to me in Montana, and I had been living out west, and I was moving home. And a friend of mine that was a truck driver came with a load of salmon. He was on the way to Pittsburgh, and he said, I can put your things in the back of my truck and I can deliver you back to Vermont. So my dad's letters found me everywhere, no matter where I was. The letters were filled with news, and often they were filled with his philosophies, which were very fun to hear. He would go on and on about the meaning of life and what's important in life, and I loved to get those letters. They were filled with lots of love. He was always very interested in everything I was doing. I was very lucky. He wanted to know the details of my travels or my studies or whatever, the latest road race. And this letter is written to me in Maine, so I was heading to do a winter outward bound staff training, and he was writing, I can't believe you're traveling so far up to the Gaspé Peninsula just to find snow, and we found you on the map, and we'll look forward to seeing you next week. So really, after I went away to college is when I appreciated my dad on another whole level. I did appreciate him when we were young, but when I went away to college, I found that there weren't a lot of fathers like him. The fathers were often very absent. They weren't available. They didn't talk. They didn't listen like my dad did. And my dad wanted to stay in touch. He genuinely wanted to continue to show his caring and love as I spread my wings and went from college to other jobs and also travels around the world. So Sunday letters became an integral part of our routine, and Dad continued to be an inspiration to me. In this letter he wrote to me in Norway, and he was really excited to hear all the news from Norway. That's a place that he had never been, and he thought that sounded like just his kind of place because I was going there to hike for a month. And he relished newsy reports from the Great Barrier Reef of Australia, or from the jungles of Malaysia, perhaps. And everywhere I went, I gave him my itinerary and the dates that he needed to write his letters, the last possible date where he needed to send the letters. My mother would address them loyally. They would be on their way to places all around the world. When I arrived in Jakarta, I received 4 letters in that particular place because I had been delayed in reaching that point. And I felt hugged in a giant bear hug by my dad at that one. And they were always a symbol of, you are loved. So this is my dad in his element, skiing, biking, hiking, playing tennis. There was no sport that he wasn't willing to try. At the age of 75, my dad suffered a mild stroke. We worked, it was shocking to us. We worked diligently, all of our family. My brother and I, my mother, we all put our lives on hold to help him recover from that. And he worked so hard with therapy, and he recovered just about back to normal, walking and regaining the use of everything. We were, 3 months after that stroke, we were snowshoeing to celebrate his signing off from all his therapy and to celebrate how far he had come. My dad fell over and couldn't get up. He had suffered another stroke. This one was severe. He ended up in the nursing home. His life changed drastically. So as I visited him in the nursing home, it was very sad. It was very tough to see him not able to engage in life as he had his whole life in an active way. And hike on the long trail. This is my dad on top of Mount Laramie on the long trail. I'll read a short excerpt from the book. Maybe are we running out of time? We're pretty good. It haunted me to think of Dad's life, so completely different from the rest of his life so well lived. Why this ending? Why this sharp contrast to his former life? And so I wrote, Dear, dear Dad, what is it like to be you right now? When you cannot find words, are you frustrated? Do you wonder why we aren't helping you more, or why we aren't fixing things? Are you okay? Dad, it was always a pleasure to go on a trip with you. I envision you standing somewhere on a trail in the middle of nowhere, on a mountaintop, or on cross-country skis in deep snowy woods. You standing there with a look of deep contentment. This is the life, you'd say. You scored the highest level on the happiness index with your appreciation of the simplest things. Every day you smiled, were kind to others, joyous, appreciative, fun-loving, making the best of whatever your situation. I look to you now in my sadness as I struggle mightily. I try to live fully and well, as you would want me to. Sometimes I do. In truth, I'm heavily weighed down with sorrow seeing you this way. I don't know how to say goodbye to you without feeling deep sadness. Is it possible? How can I be different or handle it better? I want to enjoy the moments, the camaraderie, and being together, but our now seems tinged with the sadness of the impending goodbye and the cold reality of this situation. So I started to write, and I kept writing. I wrote about our adventures, my childhood moments. I wrote about adventures that we had shared in the woods, on mountaintops, on the tennis court, and on cross-country skis. I wanted to ensure that we'd remember the good times in our adventures, and it was really important for me to place those in the forefront, instead of feeling that the memory of my dad sitting there in the wheelchair paralyzed was my most lasting memory. It was the most recent one. He loved singing. This is with the senior singers. He loved singing here and leading sing-alongs. I went to the nursing home and I shared my stories, the ones that I was writing, and all the ones I could remember. I would read the stories to him. I would tell him the stories. I told him the story. We remembered this story of when we hiked Mount Washington one day, and he had always wanted to stay. He and my mother had always wanted to stay at Lakes of the Clouds Hut. And as we hiked up in the top photo, we could see the views of all the surrounding mountains. And it was a glorious day. We got to the hut and the weather changed. The rain poured. And in the morning we woke up to whiteout conditions. And at the bottom, here we are inching east from cairn to cairn in the pea soup fog and clouds. And it was a harrowing experience. We relived some of our memories on the tennis court. Dad loved hitting forehands as hard as he could. Forehand to forehand. We'd hit until one of us missed into the net, and then we'd laugh. And someone watching might have thought we were trying to annihilate one another. We also played in a mixed doubles tournament at the Brattleboro Club one day, and that was a memorable time when we were both going for a ball, and he was a bit bigger and stronger, and he was right there. He shoved me out of the way so he could hit the ball, so he could hit the overhead, and I went flying and landed in a heap with my white tennis skirt smeared with green clay. We had a lot of tennis memories. And I shared the story of when we were on the top of Mount Haystack. We arrived in Irishburg and he had forgotten his raincoat, of all things. We were checking the list. Fleece, mittens, hat, water, snacks, rain gear. He had forgotten his raincoat, so we rushed to find him a replacement raincoat. All we could find was this camouflage poncho, which wasn't quite his style, but we got a lot of laughs out of it. He was a very good sport about it, and I think that was the only time that he wore that camo poncho. I brought this little trophy with me to the nursing home one day, and he took it in his hands and he held this trophy. It brought back memories. Even though he might not have been saying many words, this trophy really resonated with him. We had gone to a road race in Saco. He loved to run, and my dad joined me in a lot of road races during that period of time. He was a middle-of-the-pack runner, but in this race, we got to the end. We were waiting around for the awards, and they announced in the 60 to 69-year-old category, Frank Dearborn is the winner. And my dad stood there frozen. He couldn't believe it, that he had won his age group. And that was his only one time that he did win his age group. And so we treasure this trophy. Mom cheered loudly when Dad went up to accept his award. We were blessed to take a trip to New Zealand. And one of the highlights of being in New Zealand was tramping the Milford Track. They call it the most famous walk in the world. It's a 4-day walk, stay in huts for 3 nights. And I'll read a very short passage from the book. It was a memorable trip. So here we are hiking along on our third day, and it had been raining for 19 hours at this point, and it was still raining. I led, followed by Dad, then Mom, who preferred taking up the rear. Dad copied my Kiwi-style outfit, shorts over long johns. You can see that there. Not impressed with that look, Mom stuck with her navy blue long pants. Rain jacket hoods temporarily sealed out the cool rain. Taking small steps, we inched by fallen trees covered with moss and lichen. We nodded our heads in silent acknowledgement of the 15-mile marker on the 4th switchback. As the trail curved in a tight hairpin turn, I glanced over my shoulder. Thick clouds swirled around two blue forms with heads down to escape the full force of the rain. Their shoulders hunched as a protective mechanism, almost like a turtle trying to withdraw into its shell. This sight haunted me. What am I doing, I thought. What daughter would expose her parents to such dismal conditions? These are my parents. The voice of reason and calm countered, Donna, such is the nature of a backpacking trip. You accept the weather you're given. You have no choice. And I didn't. I remembered this section from 5 years prior, when I hiked it in ideal weather, and had thought how perfect it would be for my parents. It couldn't have been more different. We did make it to the end of the 33.5-mile long hike. It was quite an achievement for my mom and my dad. They were 68 and 69 years old at the time, the oldest hikers in this group of 41. So every night the same group of people would stay in the hut. They were much fitter and stronger hikers than many of the young college kids. They were admired by the youngsters on the trip. Here's the end where people put their shoes and hiking boots and flip-flops, whatever they had worn, they put them over this ending sign. I went to the nursing home and reminisced about my 50th birthday. We had a memorable trip to the Dartmouth College Grant, northern New Hampshire. We were greeted by temperatures of minus 22 degrees when we got out of our car, ready to snowshoe or ski to this hut where I had chosen, and my mother and father were generous to go and celebrate. I didn't want to party, and my mother said, well, I'll go if it's not too cold. Her idea of cold was that it better not be any lower than 20 degrees. All right, 20 degrees above zero. It was 22 below zero. I was just so concerned. We got out of the car, I said, okay, what are we going to do? And my mom said in her true fashion, okay, let's go. We got on our snowshoes and our skis, and that's my mom. That's true to her form. We got there, and the cabin was 22 below zero also because the logs were cold. No one had been in the cabin for at least a week or so. My husband is the pyro. He got to work, and he did raise the temperature in the cabin. Within a few hours, it was up into 68 or 70 degrees. But as he thought about it, my dad, he said, you know, I don't think I can go outside in that below zero weather, you know, in the middle of the night, take a leak. Wally, my husband, immediately went to work. He found an old plastic bottle, and he fashioned a custom pee bottle for my dad, presented it to him. My dad was grateful, and he said, thank you. I appreciate this. You saved my life. This is the note. And I've saved this all this time. This is probably back in 1996. One day my mother and father were planning to meet Gerda and me, my original lab. You can sort of see her there. We were on a 6-day backpack trip up and over Jay Peak. My mother and father were staying in a B&B in Irisburg. They were smarter than I was. It was October 2nd, and a big storm, a winter storm blew in. October 2nd, would you have guessed it? And we thought we'd see brilliant fall foliage. Instead, we saw snow. I had trouble finding my way. Gerda helped me find my way up and over Jay Peak. We were supposed to meet my mom and dad there, and I had hoped that they stayed in their B&B for an extra hour to have another muffin or something. We crested the mountain. As I was coming down, I saw a piece of paper on the end of a twig. And it was very out of place for a high on a mountain. And I went and I saw it was a note. It was this note, Dear Donna and Gerda. We turned back. We were on our way down. Love you, Mom and Dad. And they had made it almost all the way to the top of the mountain. But they had started to get cold, and they had started to have trouble finding the trail. So they were on their way down. The time said, oh, it's only 13 minutes, and I did the woo-hoo, and my mother woo-hooed back, and we reunited. Anyway, all of these stories I brought to my dad in the nursing home week after week, on Sundays and on other days. We talked about trains enthralled Dad ever since he was a kid growing up in 33 Webster Street. And the lights from the 11:30 freight train would shine in his window every night, and he loved it. No matter where he was, he would count the cars on trains. He was a true train lover. And here is my mom and dad's maiden backpack voyage. When we grew up, we hiked. We did day hikes as kids. But when I was a sophomore in college, I said, okay, let's do an overnight. They were game. If I was the organizer, I would do the cooking, Mom said. So we did 3 days up and over Mount Mansfield. And it rained almost the whole time, but we had a great time. This rain seemed to be a theme here. I like this picture. He was a Springfield College man, graduating in 1952. My dad embraced the Springfield College motto, spirit, mind, and body. And he devoted attention to all three in really having a very balanced approach to life. Springfield College was a great school for both of us, and I graduated from there in 1975. Here we were celebrating Mom and Dad's 35th anniversary in Galehead Hut in the White Mountains. We had a lot of stories just from this one trip. So we were gone for two nights and 3 days. And on the bottom, my dad is saying, okay, Doris, what are you putting in my pack now? That's the caption from that picture. I kept writing year after year. And more than 8 years after I started, this is the result. My book, every Sunday. And it's almost a miracle that it became a book. Here's Dad on the summit of South Twin Mountain. 2 years after the previous picture was when we had been there in a whiteout. We were socked in and we could not see a thing. He said, we need to go back. So this picture, this photo on the front of the book really exemplifies my dad. It's showing him right in his element with a contented smile on his face. He's dressed all in blue, his favorite color. From head to toe, even his backpack is blue. His shoelaces were blue. Everything is blue. And Dad loved the quotation by Christopher Morley, there is only one success, to be able to spend your life in your own way. And he did feel grateful that he had been able to do just that, spend his life in his own way. He chose it. So this is a bench on a very well-used rail trail in his hometown of Franklin, New Hampshire. It's called the Winnipesaukee River Trail. So we had this memorial bench to my dad installed there with this inscription. And it's at a bend in the river, a beautiful spot. Kayakers traverse the whitewater in the spring. Bikers, walkers, cross-country skiers, runners, people go by here. This is the perfect spot for us to have a bench in memory of my dad. It's a very tranquil, peaceful spot. We love knowing it's there. We love going there and sitting and reflecting. Here's Deb, my sister, back in 1971 with our first dog, Angus. She was a very important part of our family. We miss her dearly. And here we are at the end. Someone mentioned the book Tuesdays with Morrie. Some of you might have read that book. I read it years ago, but I decided that I would read it again. And as I reread Tuesdays with Morrie, it really resonated with me. Dad and Morrie Schwartz, who was a philosophy professor, there were so many similarities. They were both wise, revered men. They had very similar philosophies about life. They both lived with no regrets. They both were kind, caring people. When someone asked Morrie if he worried about being forgotten when he died, he said, I have so many people who have been involved with me in close and intimate ways on so many different levels. And love is how you stay alive. And I love that. And that's true for my dad. So Frank Dearborn, you will certainly not be forgotten. We will remember your smile and your laugh, your kindness and your positive attitude, and the way you listened and were fully present with us. And thank you very much for coming. This is the dedication for my book. Thank you for coming. I appreciate it. very much. If anybody would like a copy, we do have a couple. If you have questions, I don't want to hold up progress here. Okay, okay, we're good.
I was wondering, because in the book you have so many details about food and everything, have you kept a journal every day of your life?
Well, yes. I mean, some of the details of the nursing home days, when my dad ended up in the nursing home, I started a notebook, and we started it for him to leave positive, encouraging words for him. And at the same time, we just kind of chronicled all of our days as we visited him. And so I still have that. So I had that when I kind of, my book got restructured into this present format. So I had all of these notes that really brought back all those days. And so I love sharing those little details because it makes you feel in the moment. Yes, so I have, and when I travel, I keep really detailed notes. And I love, and they really do help me remember, because with the passage of time, you forget the little details. You remember the general things. So that's helped me to really recall a lot of the details from our adventures and from those days.
Donna, I'm at the end of your book.
Yes, you're reading it.
Oh yes, and
Okay.
I love this. I can't believe every mountain there seems in this world, you know the name of. And I'm not a mountain climber, so as I read those chapters, every mountain, you know, everywhere you've been.
Well,
How did you know them? Well, you must. I don't know how you know them
I've
all.
been blessed to visit a lot of places around the world, truly.
And then
Yes, I mean, my father started me with a curiosity about everything and about the world.
Yeah.
And we were hikers as a family. And so I just love being in the woods and on mountains. And my dad gave me this curiosity to read a lot and to discover
So you
all
knew them
kinds
all.
of things.
You must have read about those mountains.
So I've read about those mountains, and some of them it's taken me 30 years to eventually visit them.
Yeah.
But I'm definitely
I've
blessed.
loved your book.
I'm glad you enjoyed the book. Thank you.
Yes, I did.
Thank you for coming. Yes, thank you everyone for coming.
Thank you.